in terms of his any possible links with extremist groups. And from what we know, the FBI did in fact question him. They took him in for questioning. They were in fact tracking his social networking sites for quite some time, but as we found out and discovered, obviously the FBI did not deem necessary at the time to keep following this young man because they did not find anything suspicious in his behavior back in 2011. We certainly know that obviously the arrest of the younger brother took place. They're going to try to find out more about this, exactly how soon and what exactly kind of connections the older and the younger brother might have had to extremist groups possibly outside the United States. We do know that the older brother, 26-year-old Tamerlan, did in fact travel to the North Caucasus back in January 2012, and he stayed there for about 6 months, and there are certain suspicions that that could have been the time where kind of his behavior changed and maybe his links to certain extremist groups increased. The younger brother remains in a hospital in the Boston area. He is being treated. Last night we heard when he was arrested that he had suffered serious injuries. There were certain rumors possibly that he had suffered some kind of spinal injury in the standoff between police that lasted for about 2 hours. We do know that he's in hospital right now and that all the legal proceedings will in fact kick off as soon as he gets all the medical treatment that's necessary for him to be able to function in this investigation.
Anastasia Churkina reporting for us there. Now, some of the most dramatic and memorable pictures from Friday's manhunt in Boston are available for you at RT.com. The news of terror suspects' capture sent a wave of public euphoria through the streets of Boston and in the area. Those dramatic images are there in our special photo section, where you can also see how the standoff unfolded. In an exclusive interview here on RT, the mother of the two alleged bombers says one of her sons was hounded by the FBI for several years. She also claims there's no way that either of them could have been involved in any terrorist attack. RT's Madina Kochanova traveled to Dagestan, where the mother now lives, to find out more about the family's backstory.
The investigation into the background of the Tsarnaev's brothers has brought us here to this part of Makhachkala, the capital of Dagestan. Now, this is the house where their parents live. However, as we tried to reach them this morning, it turned out that they fled to the neighboring region of Chechnya to their relatives to avoid all the attention. Meanwhile, this morning I managed to speak to the mother of the two brothers, and she told me how devastated she is and that she still can't believe that her sons may have been involved in the bombings.
In our house, nobody talked about the terrorism, and my son Tamerlan really got involved in the religion, religious politics 5 years ago. He was controlled by FBI like for 5 years. They knew what my son was doing. They knew what actions and what the sites on internet he was going. How could this happen? How could they? They were controlling every step of him. Never ever. This is not true. My two sons are innocent.
Those neighbors we spoke to are shocked. They said that it was a very nice and a very quiet family.
I know the brothers very well from their childhood. We used to live in Chechnya together. I was their neighbor. Then we moved here. I know they couldn't have carried out the attack, and they couldn't have been involved in it. They spent most of their lives in the US, studied there, worked there. They didn't have any links with Wahhabists and other militants.
The youngest brother, Jahar, on his page at the social network Vkontakte, mentioned this school #1 in Makhachkala among those places where he used to study. However, here, very few people remember the Tsarnaev's brothers.
The family came to Dagestan in September 2001. The boys were enrolled to our school, then they apparently managed to get papers to leave Dagestan. They left in less than a year, they didn't spend a long time here, and they didn't grow up here.
They first entered the school together with their two sisters back in 2001, however, for a very short period of time, and in 2002, they left to the United States.
Moscow warned against classing terrorism as either domestic or foreign right after it emerged that the alleged bombers have links to Russia's North Caucasus region. New York's former Mayor Rudy Giuliani has already admitted that the U.S. has, for a long time, turned a blind eye to terrorism in the North Caucasus. Western media have tended to portray the armed groups in the mountainous region as freedom fighters. Alexei Yarshevsky explains.
When news broke of an unexpected North Caucasus trace to the Boston bombings, literally every global media outlet was quick to put the word Chechnya into their headlines.
Told by a source that they fled the Russian Caucasus of Chechnya.
He is an ethnic Chechen.
The Tsarnaev brothers are said to be ethnic Chechens who lived in Kyrgyzstan and Dagestan before coming to the U.S.
The two suspects were branded as coming from a Russia region close to Chechnya. Indeed, many may need reminding of the name and location of Republic of Dagestan, where the two supposedly came from. But the word Chechnya certainly rings bells, probably because of the media headlines in the 1990s and at the beginning of the new millennium. That's when Russia had a military operation in the North Caucasus.
Thousands of Russian troops deployed in the Republic can finally be drawn down. The rebels fighting for independence from Moscow have been dramatically reduced in number.
For Muslim scholars, the Chechen fight for independence had now become the ultimate jihad.
That conflict often went beyond the borders of the Chechen Republic. Let's remember apartment buildings bombed in Moscow, a theater siege in the Russian capital, and a school takeover in Russia's North Ossetia. Thousands of civilians were killed, but the men who had blood on their hands were often described as freedom fighters and rebels by the Western media. At times it even sounded like a romantic image. The reality is that in the North Caucasus, Russia has been fighting the same war which America embarked upon after the Twin Towers were brought down, against global terrorism. Moscow never made a secret that those fighting on the side of the Chechen militants were closely tied to Al-Qaeda and were financed from abroad by terrorist organizations worldwide. But it's only after 9/11, the transport bombings in Madrid and London, that understanding the notion that terrorism has no nationality has started to appear in the global media. From freedom fighters to armed dangerous terrorists most wanted men in America. Years have passed, media labels have changed. The question is whether a change in attitude towards a common enemy will follow in due course.
RT's Alexei Yarshevsky reporting for us there. Now let's get more analysis from Brian Levin, director of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University at San Bernardino. Thank you very much for being with us, Brian. Let's get right to this. We're hearing that the FBI received information from Russia that the older brother was a follower of radical Islam. Now, he wasn't allegedly still able to carry out these activities. How is this possible?
Well, it's possible because in the United States, actually following violent ideology is constitutionally protected. There used to be laws in the United States that made it a crime to advocate the destruction of the government. However, those laws were overturned by the Supreme Court decades ago. So advocating violence in the abstract is constitutionally protected.
Now, we were able to speak to their mother, and all mothers are going to hope that their sons are innocent, but she claims that the FBI was actually controlling the activities of her elder son for the past 5 years, even saying that they were set up. What's your take?
I don't know how to give credibility to something that is beyond the pale. The fact of the matter is the FBI constantly gets tips about people who may be extremist threats. However, merely linking to extremist literature or mentioning extremist ideology without engaging in a conspiracy or a bona fide threat is constitutionally protected in the United States. So it's fallacious that the FBI would have been plotting with him or something like that. What would the FBI's motive be? The fact of the matter is, in the United States, even horrendous views and the abstract advocacy of violence is constitutionally protected absent a conspiracy, a threat, or an actual crime.
All right, now turning kind of to your area of expertise, these Boston bombs were pressure cooker devices, so we're hearing. Now, is this a hallmark of an Al-Qaeda linked attack? Talk to me about these devices and how common are they really?
Well, let me step back. It certainly is a hallmark of Al-Qaeda, but Al-Qaeda doesn't have a monopoly on the use of these kinds of weapons. Indeed, the instructions for these weapons are ubiquitous throughout the internet. That being said, they are a type of weapon that has been used in the Middle East and the Indian subcontinent and in parts of Asia, much more than here in the United States. Very uncommon in the United States. Pipe bombs and other types of devices, much more common. And about a month ago, a Salafist jihadist handbook on how to make such bombs, along with other weapons, was put out, along with a magazine called Inspire, which is put out by the AQAP, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. We're just hearing here in the United States that there may be some connection to extremists in the Caucasus between the older brother and this group located in the region over in Chechnya.
Now, as this investigation plays out, we know we're going to be getting more information. But since September 11th, in the wake of these attacks, the U.S. launched its so-called war on terror. Given these events and the Boston bombings, how secure is the domestic situation in the United States right now? The domestic situation in the United States is that we are reasonably secure, but it's not fail-safe. And I think it's been proven. 2 young men had a major American city on lockdown, and that speaks volumes. We had something similar in Southern California with someone who wasn't an ideologically motivated extremist, having whole communities shut down. So I think that we've gotten a bit complacent, but we've also had law enforcement trained and put into place reasonable security measures. The fact of the matter is, terrorism is going to continue in the United States, although if you look over the last 10 years, the number of people in the United States who have been killed by Salafist jihadists is less than 20 since 9/11. Now, given these events, and you've mentioned that there's been a relatively high success rate in stopping these types of attacks, but do you think that the U.S. will shift its focus from foreign terrorism or terrorism abroad to more of a domestic policy or domestic issues?
I think it's going to be both. I think we face a threat from anti-government and neo-Nazis, as well as ultra-radical Salafist jihadists, and I do believe that that the risk continues. The difficult thing is when is the next plotter going to be successful? We had a string of dozens of plots, both from domestic extremists and foreign sympathetic extremists, if you will, and most of them were unsuccessful. So it's when is that shot going to go into the goal? And that's what we worry about. We could have mass casualties at any time in the United States or in Europe when some of these folks are successful. The plots keep coming.
Now, turning to the Tsarnaev brothers themselves, lots of reports coming about the fact that they are of Chechen descent. Now, they've mostly spent their lives in the United States, though. What do you think could have ignited their radicalization and developed their hatred for the country that they lived in for so long?
Well, I think it's a variety of personal factors. Was there a personal setback? Was there an inability for one of the brothers to connect to community here? Did they go back to Russia and get exposed to someone who was a mentor who had some ideology that was able to catapult, amplify, and direct the aggression? Or was this found over the internet or elsewhere? We just don't know. But I would think that there's someone in a peer group or family that helped solidify this, and this belief system exists and is accessible over the internet. But there's usually some kind of mentoring person, whether it was direct or indirect, in other words, through a relationship that's real or through the internet, we just don't know. And I think that the manipulation of the older brother of the younger brother had an effect as well. And listening to that mother leads me to believe that she wasn't the perfect parent either.
All right, appreciate your thoughts on the subject. Always interesting to find more about the situation as it unravels. Hope we can be in contact with you in the future. Thanks. That was Brian Levin, director of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at the California State University at San Bernardino.